Ever get that feeling like your brain just kind of bounces between totally different things?
Yeah.
One minute you're knee-deep in some tech spec from, like, the 90s. Next, you're trying to perfect a vintage cocktail recipe.
And then, bam, you're analyzing political commentary, but through the lens of, like, The West Wing or something.
Tell me about it. Well, get ready for that times 1,000. We're diving into JAG's workshop, the digital playground of this guy, Jason Anthony Guy. And trust me, it's a wild ride.
This isn't your grandma's blog, that's for sure. It's tech nostalgia. It's cocktail culture. It's honestly, it's all over the map, but in the best way possible. You'll see.
Okay, before we get lost in the sauce,
Yeah.
who is this Jason Anthony Guy? What makes him like the curator of all this coolness?
So he calls himself a retired technologist, lifelong learner, all that jazz. Even calls himself a curious kid, which honestly I kind of love. But here's the kicker.
Hit me.
The guy's got degrees in both computer science and theater arts. Talk about range.
Okay, now that's not something you see every day. It's like he's almost meant to connect those worlds, the techie and the artistic.
Exactly. And that's what he does with his blog. He calls himself a technology and liberal arts enthusiast, which I think sums it up perfectly.
I am so intrigued. So walk us through it. What kind of stuff does he actually write about? Give us a sneak peek.
Okay, so picture this. He writes this whole post about the original Nintendo Game Boy, right?
Classic.
Total classic. But he goes deep. He's found this YouTube video, breaks down the, and I quote, insane engineering of the thing.
Oh, I love that.
Right. It's like this tiny little device, but the ingenuity that went into making it back then, mind-blowing.
And this is coming from a guy who clearly knows his stuff. Didn't he mention he still has, like, consoles going back to the Super Nintendo?
Oh, yeah, he's got the vintage tech to back it up. He even connects this whole Game Boy breakdown to his own childhood. Like, this is what I grew up with. This is what shaped me.
That personal touch makes all the difference, though, right? Suddenly it's not just about circuit boards. It's about memories.
Totally. You feel like you're getting this glimpse into how his brain works, which, can be a little dangerous.
Okay, so we've got the tech side of things. What else gets him going?
All right, buckle up because this one's a bit of a curveball. Remember John Amos? Played James Evans Sr. on Good Times.
Oh, yeah. Good times. Classic.
So, Guy writes this really moving post about Amos passing away, calls him his first TV dad.
Oh.
It's really sweet, actually. You can tell how much those performances meant to him growing up.
And it wasn't just a quick, oh, sad he's gone kind of thing either. He went on to talk about Amos's other roles, right?
Oh, absolutely. He does this whole thing about Die Hard 2, Coming to America, even a guest spot on Psych.
No way. Love that show.
It's like how one actor's career can have this crazy impact, even across, like, completely different genres in decades.
It's true. Okay, but there's another pop culture thing this guy is all about. The West Wing.
Oh, tell me about it. He's obsessed. He's on, like, his third or fourth rewatch of the entire series.
Yeah.
Even did a post for its 25th anniversary.
Dedication.
Right. He shared a link to a best episode compilation, all fan voted, which, side note, totally worth checking out.
Oh, I trust the fans on that one. Okay, but here's where I got whiplash. He goes from loving the West Wing, this very idealized view of politics, to sharing a downfall parody video about Trump.
Yeah, that was a wild left turn. Like, brutal humor, but still unexpected.
It's like he's holding up this mirror, right? This is what we wish for, and this is what we got.
It's a bold move, gotta give him that.
Oh.
But it's also kind of refreshing, like he's not afraid to get a little uncomfortable,
For sure. But just when you think you've got him figured out, tech geek, political junkie, he hits you with this. A man loves cocktails.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget about the cocktail corner of JAG's workshop. He did this whole thing for Negroni Week, different variations, which gin to use.
Sounds dangerous.
Right. But here's the best part. His favorite version is technically a Boulevardier, which swaps the gin for bourbon.
So even with his drinks, he's got to put a unique spin on it. I like it. Didn't he have some hot take about muddling mint, too?
Oh, yeah. He's very firmly in the don't muddle the mint camp, especially for mojitos, so it makes them better.
Okay, so pro tip from Jason Anthony Guy. Slap your mint, don't smash it. Got it.
There you go. But you see what I mean? This guy's brain is a fascinating place. It's funny you mentioning those cocktails. It kind of reminds me of another side to this guy, the photography, right?
Oh, right. Almost forgot about that whole aspect.
It's like he sees the world through this totally different lens.
Yeah.
Like, even when he's writing, you can almost picture the photo he's painting with his words.
He's a storyteller at heart, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And he's got an eye for those little details that, like, really make you think. Remember that post he did about shrinking
Oh,
sidewalks?
yeah, that one was
So
interesting.
he could have just, like, ranted about it, right?
Which, knowing him, he'd have plenty to say.
Totally. But instead, he shares this bird's eye photo of a city street and the sidewalk. It's like this tiny sliver compared to the road. It's crazy. Makes you really see it differently.
Talk about impactful. Sometimes you need that visual, you know?
Totally. And then he gets into this whole thing about how cities USED to be designed, wider sidewalks meant for people to actually, like, hang out, not just rush through.
It's true. There's a whole social aspect to urban planning that we don't always think about.
And that's his thing, right? Making those connections. He's like, look, how we build our environment, it affects everything.
It's like that saying, we shape our cities, and then our cities shape us.
Boom. Exactly. And you can tell this stuff really matters to him. He's super active on Mastodon. Apparently gets into some pretty heated debates about it all.
Well, that's where all the cool kids hang out these days, right?
Right. But it's not just urban planning. I saw he got into it about Shakespearean pronunciation, too.
Of course he did. Why am I not surprised?
The man's got to have opinions on everything. But even with all that, there's this other side to him, this, like, commitment to getting things right. Remember that correction of the week thing he does?
Oh, yeah, where he highlights news outlets that actually own up to their mistakes.
Exactly. And in this day and age, talk about refreshing. Like, everyone's so busy digging their heels in. It's nice to see someone celebrate a little humility, you know?
It says a lot about him, I think. This idea that, like, learning never stops.
Yeah.
Even when it means admitting you were wrong.
For sure. And he doesn't shy away from the tough stuff either. Remember that post about the Maui wildfire?
Oh, that was powerful.
Right. The way he connected it to climate change, our responsibility to protect these fragile ecosystems,
Yeah.
it really made you stop and think.
It wasn't just a news story for him, it was personal.
Hmm.
And on a totally different note, but equally important, there was that whole thing about the Texas Attorney General and the Latino campaign workers.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was a tough one.
He didn't hold back either, did he?
Not even a little bit.
Right.
Called it out as a blatant voter intimidation tactic.
Because it was.
Exactly. And he put it in this historical context, too. Like, this isn't new. This is part of a pattern.
A reminder that we can't take democracy for granted.
Exactly. But even with all that seriousness, he knows how to bring the funny. Remember that post about the Onion getting new owners?
Oh my God, that's hilarious. It's almost like an Onion headline itself.
Right, the irony. But that's what I love about him. It's like he's saying, look, the world's kind of a mess, but we can still laugh about it.
Dark humor for the win.
Yeah.
But even his humor has this way of, like, making you think. Remember that thing he shared about the baseball player who ended up playing for both teams in the same game?
Wait, what? Seriously?
Seriously. It's one of those you can't make this stuff up kind of stories.
Yeah.
And he just stumbles across them like it's nothing.
He's like a walking encyclopedia of weird facts, but you always come away learning something.
Always. He's constantly expanding our horizons, you know? Like, hey, the world's full of these crazy, unexpected things. Which, speaking of unexpected, you ever heard this thing called symphony?
Symphony. Sounds intense.
So imagine this. A full orchestra on stage with DJs and vocalists.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but slightly terrified. Keep going.
And they're all playing these, like, high-energy orchestral versions of, like, club anthems.
But get out! Like classical music meets rave culture.
Basically. He shared a video, and it's wild. But also kind of amazing. You got to see it to believe it.
It's like he's bridging these worlds that you never thought would go together.
Which, let's be real, is his whole MO, right? He's always challenging our assumptions about what should go together. It's
Yeah.
like, why limit yourself?
It makes you want to, like, crank up the music and go explore something new, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
He actually says something like that in one of his posts. Hold on. I wrote it down. Life's too short to be a snob about your passions.
I love that. And it's so true.
It's like he's giving us permission to geek out about whatever makes us tick,
No.
even if it seems kind of random to other people.
Totally. And it's not all like sunshine and rainbows either, you know? He gets real too. Remember that post about his friend's daughter, the one with type 1 diabetes?
Oh, right. Yeah, that was touching.
It would have been easy to just kind of gloss over it, but he used it as a chance to, like, really educate people about the disease.
And he encouraged people to support diabetes research, too.
Exactly. So, you know, he's got jokes, he's got opinions, but there's also this big heart underneath it all.
Which honestly just makes me respect him even more. It's like this whole eclectic mix of stuff he's into. It all comes back to these core values.
Curiosity, empathy, wanting to connect with people.
And he walks the walk, too. That whole membership option on his blog, he's upfront about it, like this helps me keep the lights on, but it's also about building a community.
Which I think is really cool. It's not just a one-way street with him.
Definitely not. He's all about transparency, too.
Yeah.
Shares his process, the tech behind the site. He even has a whole section about, like, the nuts and bolts of how he built his website.
Well, yeah. Dude's a technology and liberal arts enthusiast. Gotta rep both sides.
For sure. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the mind of Jason Anthony Guy, what's the big takeaway here?
I think it's this. Don't be afraid to explore. Try new things, even if they don't seem like they go together.
Embrace the chaos.
Exactly, because you never know what you might discover or who you might connect with along the way.
And hey, if a retired tech guy can make cocktails, political commentary, A&D vintage Nintendo tech cool.
The possibilities are endless.
Exactly. All right, folks, that's all the time we've got for this deep dive. Go forth and explore those passions, no matter how weird or wonderful they may be.
Cheers to that.